Welcome. Today is a very blissful day. At this moment, we are initiating ourselves and we are entering the most blissful Vedic mathematics domain. We are initiating ourselves for the applied values of Vedic mathematics. The applied values of Vedic mathematics help reach at the organization of knowledge. Knowledge and organization of knowledge are two distinct but parallel disciplines. This pair of disciplines of pure and applied values of Vedic mathematics as knowledge and organization of knowledge are two blissful features which are to be glimpsed and to be imbibed by us. We sadhakas fulfilled with intensity of urge to be parallel with Vedic have to initiate ourselves properly for the applied values running parallel with the pure values. For it, have to go to the shelter of the organization of the text of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Srimad Bhagavad Gita is the essence of Vedanta. Veda and Vedanta, a reach from pure to applied values, is the range of the Vedic systems. It is being normally posed by many of us as to why the Ganita Sutras are being designated as Vedic Ganita Sutras. For them, for the present, the answer is that this is the mathematics of organization of Vedic knowledge. We will be certainly reverting to this aspect after we have taken some steps in this domain. Today, we are initiating ourselves for Geeta, Ganita, Khsetra. We are initiating ourselves for mathematical domain of Geeta as applied values of the Ganita Sutras. Ganita Sutras are Vedic Ganita Sutras, and these have pure and applied values. Today, our focus is to remain upon the applied values of Vedic Ganita Sutras. Let us begin from the very beginning. This creation, Srishti, of the creators of space, real force space, presided by Lord Brahma, is a four-fold creation. It is manifested creation. This manifested creation of the creators of space is availing the format, features, and values of idol of Lord Brahma himself. Lord Brahma is a four-headed Lord. Each head of Lord Brahma is equipped with a pair of eyes. Lord Brahma sits gracefully in the lotus seat of 8 petals and meditates within the cavity of his own heart at the seat of Transcendental Lord Shiv. And with the grace of the Transcendental Lord, Lord Brahma multiplies as 10 Brahmas. Here is the enlightenment. This enlightenment is that force space as domain transits and transforms into the role of a creative boundary of the transcendental domain. On the screen, on the left side is the creation format. It is the format of Hypercube 4 the representative regular body of a force space parallel with the features of idol of Lord Brahma. On the right side is the depiction of hypercube 5, the manifestation within force space of the transcendental domain presided by Lord Shiva. The whole attempt here is that we, the sadhakas, shall learn and imbibe as to how transcendence takes place from the fourfold creations. So we, the human beings, are born for existence within a body, and this body is a creation. It is a manifested creation. Jiva, being, lives within this manifested body and transcends from this body to be in the new body. This dehantran, this transmigration from one body to another body, and the way this existence phenomenon is taking place is the subject of enlightenment of a Gita. Transition from force space hypercube 4 to hypercube 5 with force space as domain transiting and transforming into a creative boundary of 10 components is the whole chase. Now, this sermon, this enlightenment, this divine dialogue is at Yudh Kshetra Rekha, the boundary line, the demarcation line of the battlefield. We will be visiting the formulation Yudh Kshetra Rekha and the transcendental code value of these triple formulations Yudh Kshetra Rekha and of Geeta Ganita Kshetra are equal, and it is equal to 50. We will be reverting to it. We will be initiating with it. We will be starting like that. But for the present, at the initial stage, at the outset, it would be blissful to take note that Geeta Ganita Kshetra and Yudh Kshetra Rekha are of parallel transcendental code values of summation value 50. And this value 50 is equal to 50 coordinates fixation of the creative boundary of 10 components of the transcendental domain. As such, the mathematical domain with respect of which we are initiating ourselves is going to be the creative boundary of 10 components of the transcendental domain. Therefore, it is going to be very specific as that the battlefield demarcation for segregation of the opposite armies is as is the segregation by the creative boundary of the transcendental domain. Therefore, the whole focus is to remain about the creative boundary. Let us have a pause and permit our mind to visit force space as a domain, and then the second role of the force space is as creative boundary of the transcendental domain. How to transit from the force space as a domain role to force space as boundary is the enlightenment which is preserved in our scriptures as the enlightenment of Lord Brahma, creator himself. This enlightenment is that Lord Brahma meditates within the cavity of his own heart at the seat of the transcendental Lord, and with the grace of the transcendental Lord, Lord Brahma multiplies as 10 Brahmas. So in one sentence, this divine dialogue's message is going to be that sadhaka's enlightenment of Gita shall fix mind, concentrate mind, visit the transcendental domain as it is enveloped within its creative boundary. So the whole focus of initiation of Gita mathematics domain as applied value of the Vedic Ganita Sutras is going to be message. We shall be entering the phase and stage as to how we have to proceed further, and for it we have to go to the second slide. The second slide is depicting on the left side transcendental domain within creative boundary of 10 components. The domain boundary ratio of hypercube 5 is a raised to power 5 is to 10 b raised to power 4. The 10 boundary components are fixed in terms of 10 cross 5 is equal to 50 coordinates within a dimensional frame of 5 space. On the right side is depicted the mathematics domain of the Gita. Gita mathematics domain is a domain which is parallel with the features of the creative boundary of 10 components. Now, this domain is sequentially reached at 6 space as origin of a 5 space. 6 space as origin of 5 space is of a creative dimensional order. Therefore, the whole chase of the mathematical domain of the Gita is going to be a sequential chase right up till the origin of the transcendental domain, that is 6 space, which itself is having 7 space as its origin. Therefore, the compactification of the origins is the ultimate base upon which the transcendence phenomenon for the manifested creations is taking place. Now, this transition from manifested creation to the transcendental domain is chase of hypercube of 5, which is a fourfold manifestation layer, and summation value of 4 folds is 3, 4, 5, 6, 18. As such, the knowledge and enlightenment of Srimad Bhagavad Gita is of sequential 18 steps. These 18 sequential steps chase is going to be the subject of initiation, subject of learning. For it, we have to have sequential 6 steps. First 5 steps will be a Panchamahabhut, 5 basic elements, which will take us up till Akash Tattva, that is the 5 space domain. And it is the 6th step which will take us to the origin of 5 space, and it is here where the enlightenment of Gita is preserved. We have to glimpse and imbibe this enlightenment lively at the origin seat of the transcendental domain. The step ahead as a learning step is going to be that we should have clear comprehension, clear understanding, clear insight about Sthapatya miring rod. Sthapatya miring rod is a synthetic setup of hypercubes 1 to 6, the representative regular bodies of 1 to 6 space. These six bodies, these six hypercubes, these representative or regular bodies of 1 to 6 space are six sequential steps which are to be covered to reach at the origin of the transcendental domain. Therefore, sadhakas fulfilled with intensity efforts to be parallel with Vedic systems have to acquaint well with these six distinct synthetic components of a Sthapatya miring rod. We can formally define Sthapatya miring rod is a synthetic setup of hypercubes 1 to 6, the representative regular bodies of 1 to 6 space within 4 space manifesting as fourfold bodies. Here in the lower part of the screen, sheet 3, is the depiction of these six hypercubes depicting distinctively domains and boundaries thereof. A raised to power n is to 2n b raised to power n is the general domain boundary formulation. Therefore, the first feature of the Sthapatya miring rod, which deserves to be comprehended well, is that the domains of these bodies are enveloped within a lower dimensional bodies, but of double number of the dimension of the domain itself. A raised to power n is to 2n, b raised to power n minus 1 is the domain boundary formulation, and these six hypercubes as six space domain permitting sequential manifestation within it along its first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth axis, and the space content of six space is enveloped within a transcendental content but of 12 components. A step ahead at the initial stage itself, we have to acquaint ourselves fully with Devanagari Varanmala, the text of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and in fact, the entire Vedic literature has reached us in Devanagari script. As such, for proper initiation within Vedic scriptures domain, one is to initiate oneself with the Devanagari alphabet itself. Here on the screen, as fourth sheet, is the depiction of the Devanagari alphabet letters along with their placement values. This alphabet is of 5 groups, classes of letters. The first group is of 9 vowels, second group is of Varga consonants, third group is of Anthastha letters, fourth group is of Ushmana letters, and fifth group is of Yama letters. There are 50 letters in all. Geeta Ganit Kshetra formulation is of TC value 50. Yudh Kshetra Rekha formulation as well is of TC value 50. There are 50 letters of Devanagari alphabet. These 50 letters of Devanagari alphabet are having their specific placements for each of its letters. These placement values are designated as transcendental code values. These placement values of individual letters of Devanagari alphabet are settled as per the transcendence mathematics for the manifested creations. For the present, it may be accepted as a definition as that these 50 letters are having their placement values, that is the transcendental code values, as are tabulated here in the screen. 9 vowels are having sequential placements first to ninth, and as such, their transcendental code values respectively are 1 to 9. Likewise, the Varga consonants, Anthastha letters, Ushmana letters, and Yama letters as well are having their specific placement values, that is specific transcendental code values. Let me have a pause here and to recapture as that the first thing with which we have to acquaint ourselves well are the hypercubes from Sthapatya Miring rod to transcendental code values. But for the present, it may be taken that the first feature which to be comprehended well by us is that we have to be well acquainted with the features of a Sthapatya Miring rod as well as with the placement values of individual letters. The next initial learning step is to be, as is being depicted here as sheet 5. Here in this sheet is depicted full text of Ganita Sutras as well as of Ganita Upsutras. There are 16 Ganita Sutras and 13 Ganita Upsutras. Vedic mathematics text as such is the text of 16 Ganita Sutras and 13 Ganita Upsutras. These 16 sutras and 13 Upsutras together constitute a full text of the Vedic mathematics. We sadhakas fulfilled with intensity efforts to be parallel with Vedic systems have to acquaint ourselves well with this text. Let me have a pause and recapitulate that first thing which we have to comprehend well is the Sthapatya Miring rod. Second feature which we have to comprehend well is the transcendental code values of the letters of the Devanagari alphabet. And the third aspect is the text of Ganita Sutras. The text of Ganita Sutras, the TCV values of Devanagari alphabet, and features of Sthapatya Meering rod are three basic foundational features with which we have to have full acquaintance, as the entire superstructure further is going to be built upon this foundation. Further, as is depicted as sheet 6, it is being specifically pointed that Ganita Sutra 1 is the source sutra. Ganita Sutra 1 is source sutra as the 16 letters text of this sutra is preserving the structural keys of all 16 Ganita Sutras. Here on the computer screen is tabulated in sequential arrangement from the first letter to the 16th letter of the text of Ganita Sutra 1, along with their respective transcendental code values. These transcendental code values of these letters are in fact the structural keys of Ganita Sutras 1 to 16. With it, it will be blissful to comprehend as that the initiation within the Geeta mathematical domain is to be in terms of and parallel with this internal transcendental code values organization of the text of Ganita Sutra 1. Below, Ekadhikain formulation, which is a composition of 9 letters and preserving the structural keys of Sutra 1 to 9, is being depicted. And on the right side is the depiction of another 7 letters of formulation Purvain, preserving the structural keys of Ganita Sutras 10 to 16. In fact, the whole elaboration, whole understanding, whole study here is ultimately is going to be the study of this depiction of the transcendental code values of the formulation Ekadhikain and Purvain, as these values are going to be the manifested, formatted structural keys of the mathematical domains of Ganita Sutra 1 to Ganita Sutra 16. Therefore, it is going to be a fourth initial, foundational, fundamental initiation step. Sthapatya Meering rod, transcendental code values of the Devanagari alphabet letters, text of Ganita Sutras and Upsutras, and finally the structural keys lively within the transcendental code values and geometric formats of the text of 16 letters of Ganita Sutra 1. A step ahead, the initial foundational learning step is that these structural keys preserved in the text of Ganita Sutra 1 are ultimately leading us to the comparative table of the Ganita Sutras mathematical domains and yoga disciplines of the Gita. The end fruit of the present chase ultimately will be as to how the values of the mathematical domains of the respective Ganita Sutras and of respective yoga disciplines of Gita are parallel with each other. We sadhakas fulfilled with intensity of urge to be parallel with Vedic systems have to blissfully glimpse and imbibe this parallel flow of the values of the mathematical domains of Ganita Sutras and of the yoga disciplines of the Gita. It in itself is going to be a very, very blissful study. However, this study, as it is being of the order of the Gitas, will require and expect from the sadhakas of parallel tapasya, parallel intensified devotion, so that these values could be absorbed properly. Naturally, we will be having full devotion, sutra wise, yoga discipline wise. The tabulation here is of sutras and then the respective yoga disciplines. However, simultaneously, as is depicted in the next sheet, eighth sheet, is the comparative table of the chapters of Gita, the yoga disciplines of Gita, and the parallel tabulation for the mathematical domains of the Ganita Sutras. From Ganita Sutras to yoga disciplines, from yoga disciplines to Gita Sutras is a two-way flow, a parallel flow with whose comprehension only we will be parallel with the Vedic systems. One prominent feature is that Akshar Brahm Yoga of chapter 8 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita is of basis-based values of Vedic mathematics, and as such, there is no specific Ganita Sutras being attached in this tabulation. Likewise, the Vibhuti Yoga of Srimad Bhagavad Gita of chapter 10 is the basis base of the Adhyatam Vidya, the spiritualism, and as such, there is no specific individual sutras being tabulated here along with it. The sutra, the chapter 9, Rajvidya Rajguhi Yoga, the ninth yoga discipline of Gita, is having parallel tabulation of Ganita Sutra 4 and chapter 9 and Sutra 4 are providing twofold bridging, two-way bridging between the Adhyatam Vidya and the Vedic mathematics values. One way to proceed further will be that we shall begin with chapter 8 and chapter 10. The step ahead is the step ahead is the stage where we have to revisit the formulations Gita, Ganit Kshetra, and Yudh Kshetra Rekha, Rekha Ganit, and Jyomati Ganit. Rekha Ganit and Jyomati Ganit are two distinct disciplines. Modern mathematics, modern mind is somehow so mixed up as it is not becoming possible for it to distinguish between the two disciplines. And this is the reason that the Vedic mathematics is not coming within the comprehension range of modern mathematic logic. We will be proceeding, we will be continuing from this phase and stage. Thank you very much. ये किसने करा?